Hello everyone, I welcome you all to this lecture. In the previous lecture, we had discussed the background of IEEE 802.11 wireless local area network security. In that, we understood there will be a wireless network which consisting access points in case of the infrastructure mode that is continuously sending a beacon-like frames that is going to be captured by the stations within its range. Now that is what the probe request frame will be first transmitted from the station onto the access point. Then there will be a probe response frame that can be sent from access point onto the stations, which will be covering the service set identifier and the other information related to the access point about its capabilities such as the transmission rate, etc. So these things we are aware. Now in continuation with the same, we are going to now discuss authentication and key agreement in case of 802.11i. So 802.11i is IEEE standard specification that brings a security over a wireless local area network with the improved encryption capabilities. So which is applicable over both 802.11a and 802.11b, covering the Wi-Fi networks. So in this, again, there there are three main entities under this 802.11, and which is a protocol that supports authentication at the link layer. So three entities are supplicant, which is the wireless station, and next authenticator, which is the access point in our case, and there will be a third entity as authentication server. So now there we told there will be a radius server which is able to bring the three functionalities in the form of AAA, that is authentication, authorization and accounting. So with the coming diagram, we are going to show generic authentication messages exchanged in IEEE 802.11i. So this is the diagram showing the authentication and master session key exchange in 802.11i. So the three entities we considered are station, access point and authentication server, which is mainly known as radius, which stands remote authentication dial in user service. So first what will happen is, here AP will be sending a probe response frame to the stations with that point and onwards we are considering, so that AP is able to send its identity request covering the details of SSID and the capabilities of its own. That information can be first transmitted to the station. So AP will first transmit its identity request to the station, then identity response will be transmitted from the station onto the AP in the first step, and after this, after receiving an identity response, the AP will be able to send an access request to the radius server, that is radius access request. So here what happens is, after receiving the request by the access point, the authentication server or the radius server, that will send one challenge to confirm the authenticity of this AP, so in the form of the radius access challenge, and when this access challenge will be received by an access point, then it will be further requesting to the station. So in the form of authentication request, that message, it is sending a challenge to the station, then station must be responding to prove its identity. Now the station will be responding to the access point in the form of authentication response. Then access point, after collecting the response from the station, will be sending that request, the second time request, radius access request, to the authentication server. Then this time, if it is able to authenticate the access point and its underlying stations, then authentication server must be accepting the access request. Means it is going to send a message called radius access accepted by it about this access point. Then AP is able to notify this information to its station that it is able to use the radius server connectivity. So that is how it will send a last message as a success. So this is what the actual communication between the three entities, the station, access point, and the radius server. So here, this part showing that, so this kind of message can be exchanged which depends upon the specific authentication method used. So here we are going to discuss the four different authentication method which can be using different protocols that I will be covering very soon. But here, uh, what this EAP stands, Extensible Authentication Protocol, and EAPOL stands that Extensible Authentication Protocol over Local Area Networks. And these are all said to be a set of EAPOL messages which can be exchanged between all these three entities. So what happens is, the protocol used between the station and the AP is extensible authentication protocol, but that used between the access point and the authentication server, which depends upon the specifics of the latter. For example, the authentication server often a radius server which uses its own message types and formats. And again, here the well-known functionality supported by the radius server are authentication, authorization, and accounting. So it is basically a client server protocol used for serving all these three functionalities. So now here the main authentication methods supported by this extensible authentication protocol include EAP with MD5 algorithm, next one EAP with TLS, EAP TLS, and next one EAP TTLS, and final one is EAP PEAP. So let us have the quick overview about all these protocols. EAP MD5 is the most basic of the EAP authentication method. Here the authentication server challenges the station to transmit the MD5 hash of the user's password. The station prompts the user to type his or her password. It then computes the hash of the password and sends this across. This method is said to be insecure since an attacker could eavesdrop on such a message exchanged and then replay the hashed password. So there is a probability of it is able to impersonate the owner of the password. So again, moving on to the next method, that is EAP TLS. As we discussed in the third module, TLS stands for Transport Layer Security, so which is based again on the secure socket layer, or else the TLS. Now, EAP TLS is based on the SSL or TLS protocol. Of all the EAP methods, it is most secure and provides mutual authentication and agreement on the master session key. It requires the access point as well as the user station to have digital certificates. It is relatively straightforward to equip each access point with a digital certificate and a corresponding private key, but extending the public key infrastructure to each user of the wireless local area network may not be feasible. Again, it is the main drawback of this EAP TLS. So next method what I told is EAP TTLS. So that is EAP with tunneled transport layer security. TTLS stands here as tunneled TLS, tunneled transport layer security, that requires certificates only at the access point end. The access point authenticates itself to the station and both sides construct a secure tunnel between themselves. Over this secure tunnel, the station authenticates itself to the access point. Now, finally, we are having the last method of authentication as protected EAP. So, EAP, PEAP stands that Protected Extensible Authentication Protocol, which is proposed by the together companies Microsoft, Cisco, and RSA Security. Is very similar to that of EAP, TTLS, but in PEAP, Protected EAP, the secure tunnel is used to start a second EAP exchange wherein the station authenticates itself to the authentication server. So this is what the fourth method. So any one method among this one can be used as an authentication method in case of the authentication and master session key exchange in wireless local area network. Next, we will discuss now the key hierarchy used in the wireless LAN standard, that is 802.11i, with the better encryption methods in Node. So there are two types of keys used in wireless local area networks. The first pair are pairwise keys used to protect traffic between the station and the top and access point. The second type of a key is the group key, intended to protect broadcast or multicast traffic between an access point and multiple stations. Now, this diagram showing the key hierarchy used in the wireless local area network, where the MSK stands that master session key, PSK stands pre-shared key, PMK stands that pairwise master key, PTK as pairwise transient key, TK as temporal key, KCK as key confirmation key, and finally KEK, which is nothing but key encryption key. Here in this diagram we have shown all these keys with their hierarchy. Now the root of the key hierarchy is the pairwise master key. So the root for this key hierarchy is pairwise master key. This is obtained in one of the two ways. The station and the authentication server may agree on a master session key, that is MSK, as shown in this diagram. MSK as part of the authentication procedure. Now the authentication server then communicates this key to the access point. The API and the station then derive the PMK from the MSK. So now the AP access point and the station is able to derive this PMK from the master session key. So now anyway PMK is said to be a root, but it is going to be derived from the master session key that is used by the access point and the station. Now an alternative to computing a fresh PMK for each session is the pre-shared key. So what is the alternate for the use of the PMK is pre-shared key, which is used as a PMK. One possibility is for each station to be configured with the pre-shared key PSK. While PSK approach is easier to administer, it is also much less secure than generating fresh master keys for each new session. It is having a problem that PSK approach, it is having advantage that it is having a easier administrator. It is also much less secure than generating a fresh master keys for each new session. It is a drawback of the PSK key. Next, the 256-bit PMK is used to derive a 384-bit pairwise transient key. Now 256 can be now able to be expanded into 384-bit pairwise transient key, that is PTK. In short, the PTK is a pseudorandom function of the PMK and the two nonces chosen by the access point and the station and their MAC addresses. By deriving the PTK pairwise transient key in this fashion, key refreshing can take place without the overhead of negotiating a new PMK. Instead, the old PMK with two fresh nonces are all that is needed to refresh the PTK. So this 384-bit PTK is now divided into three 128-bit chunks, and they are as follows: TK, KCK, and KEK. Now TK is nothing but temporal key, which is used for both encryption and integrity protection of data between the access point and the station. And next 128-bit chunk, that is KCK, stands key confirmation key, which is used to integrity protect some of the messages in the four-way handshake that we are going to discuss very next in the explanation with the next slide. Key confirmation key, which is 128-bit, which is used to integrity protect some of the messages which are used in the four-way handshake procedure. Integrity protection is supported by MAC, means message authentication code, computed as a function of the message and the KC key. Now a key encryption key, finally KEK, which is again 128-bit chunk in the form of key encryption key, which is used to encrypt the messages containing the group key. So which is used to encrypt the messages containing the group keys. This is what the key hierarchy in the 802.11i. So now let us see how these keys can be used in the four-way handshake procedure. Before that, this four-way handshake procedure must be taken place between the station and data of an access point in the form of exchanging all these messages. This diagram shows four-way handshake procedure used in the 802.11i standard. The main goals of the four-way handshake are: derive the PTK from the PMK. Next one, verify the cipher suits communicated in the PCON and associate request frames. And last main goal is communicate the group keys from the access point to the station. The following figure shows the message comprising the four-way handshake procedure. In the first step, first access point sends a nonce NA to the station. Then the station chooses a nonce NS. Here NA is going to indicate a nonce selected by access point, and NS indicating this is the nonce selected by or chosen by the station S. So how I can write the nonce selected by the station S is in this way. So now the AP sends its nonce to the station, and in the second message, here these are message numbers 1, 2, so on. Now in the second message, the station chooses a nonce NS and the station computes the PTK. Now here the pairwise transient key can be generated by the station, which is a pseudo-random function over the pairwise master key and the nonces selected by access point as well, and a station such as NA and NS respectively, and the MAC message authentication codes constructed by both access point as well as stations in the form of MAC suffix A and MAC suffix S. That I am not able to show in this diagram, but you can consider the pairwise transient key, which must be a pseudo-random function over all these parameters, namely pairwise master key, nonces by an access point, nonce selected by a station, and the MAC code selected by access point and station respectively. So that is what transmitted from station onto into access point in this step. And now here the station sends its nonce together with its choice of cipher suit to the AP. So here the term cipher suit indicating, I told cipher suit means a group. It is consisting a set of algorithms or the group of algorithms that can be used for the computation of the MAC, means for the message authentication or for simply encrypting the messages, even for the keys, what keys, whether the long term, short term keys, how they can be used. That kind of information must be shared by a station with the access point. Now this MIC indicating message integrity check. The station uses the KCK to compute the message integrity check. Such protection thwarts the possible of man in the middle attack intended to replace cryptographic algorithms in the cipher suit for possibly weaker options, means when we are using with the shorter key size. So definitely we must use this message integrity check is required to avoid the man in the middle attacks. So where the person may be impersonating. So when there will be a probability of using the short key size keys, definitely will be a problem. So such problem can be overcome with the use of the message integrity check MIC code, that is also transmitted from station onto the access point in this step. And after this, on receiving the message containing NS, the AP computes the PTK. When it is going to receive this information, now the access point computes the PTK, pairwise transient key, from the above expression used by the station. So means what I told, the PTK is a pseudo-random function over the selected parameters such as PMK, NA, NS, MAC, MAC A and MAC S, that equation. So now it is able to compute PTK by using the previously discussed expression. It then extract the three keys, namely temporal key, key confirmation key, and key encryption key. In addition, the AP verifies the integrity and source of message to using the key KCK, key confirmation key. That is what happens with the second step. Now, the third message, so which will be from AP into the station, which contains the current group transient key. Now it is having the GTK. This is the key used by the access point and all the stations to integrity protect, and optionally an encryption all multicast and broadcast messages. So here this GTK key used by an access point and all stations for the purpose of the encryption, maybe for the integrity protection, and either of the messages, the maybe a multicast or the broadcast messages exchanged. So message 3 also contains the cipher suit chosen by an access point. So how the station sent in the previous step the cipher suit, the access point now able to send the cipher suit chosen by an its access point. The message is encrypted using the key encryption key KEK and E is integrity protected using KCK. So remember here the message encryption is done always by the KEK, key encryption key, and integrity protection is always achieved by using KCK, key confirmation key, KCK in short. Now the last step, message 4, which is an acknowledgement from the station that it has received the previous messages without any error. So it is a signal to the access point that henceforth all messages will be integrity protected and encrypted with the temporal key. So here I am showing there will be a message sent from the station to the AP that OK, and it is also able to send the one more parameter with this value, that is message integrity check, the value saying that all messages will be integrity protected and encrypted with the help of temporal key. This is what the four-way handshake procedure that is able to serve the main three goals: derive the privileged transient key from the PMK, verify the cipher suits communicated, and communicate the group keys from the AP onto the station. Thank you.